I would love to answer any questions anybody has about West 192. Or... Yeah.
Those multiple colored buildings across from Sam's Club on 192, that seems to be taking years to totally change out, and there's still lots of fencing around there. What's taking so long? And in some cases, it looks like they just put paint on and really didn't clean them up.
Yeah, they're trying to do sort of a cash and carry style of development, and they have had smaller sites, smaller hotels that they've been able to renovate and turn around and actually make them into decent properties. The problem with that particular site for them is that it's a difficult site to develop, and you really need more cash flow than what they were doing. They had originally planned on renovating all of those buildings. Some of them were so bad that you could have kicked a hole from the inside to the outside. It was not, there was, so when I went to them and offered money for demolition, they agreed to demo out all the buildings they hadn't touched already. They spent around $1 million per building on the two that are still up. It's their project, obviously, but I believe that in my mind, there's some sunk cost associated where you put enough money into a project, it's really hard to say, hey, we shouldn't have done this. But I think ultimately that's what will happen. Is either they'll finish out the build, or they'll sell and somebody else will come in and demo that and finish out the build. A cool project that I didn't put on here that is directly adjacent to there that you might have noticed, like a little parcel next to it that used to be Xanadu, is under construction right now. There is a French gastropub going in there. They hired the chef from the Paris restaurant in Las Vegas. I think has a Michelin star. So they're going for like a 4-star restaurant. It'll be one of the first ones out on the corridor. They're also putting I think it's a quarter scale Eiffel Tower on top of the building. They hired the same folks that did Epcot. Tourist. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 questions. Those sky bridges, is it enclosed?
Yes. Well, it has a roof. It's not necessarily enclosed because of the heat.
Yeah, okay. So I went to graduate school in Las Vegas, and I lived there for maybe 10 years. And theirs, they don't have a roof.
Yeah.
And then they have gaps underneath them so the air can ventilate. That's one of my concerns. And the second thing is, and I don't know if it's this far along in the process, but when you segmented the 8 different places, and you're talking about putting art in there and things like that, are there different like schematics with each of those pieces? It's like number 1, like
yes.
something, and number 2 something.
Yeah, I didn't really do a deep dive in that, but yes, what we did is we broke it up not only by logical termini, but there are existing characteristics. I'll burn through them real quick. In fact, let me go back to it. I'll just kind of. These pictures take forever to load. Okay. Down near 27 to 429, you have no sidewalks, you have no street lights, you have no landscaping, you have 4 different counties depending on where you're at. So that's our Four Corners area. Unfortunately, that's the least developed of all of them for our plans, and if we were doing public art, that area would probably be left off completely. The Diamond is basically Margaritaville. The Winn-Dixie that's in there, Formosa Gardens is a part of that as well, but it's really, that whole area is going to end up being themed around Margaritaville. All of those restaurants in there are going to do really well. Anything that's there that's kind of chintzy right now is going to get bought, demoed, and somebody's going to build something better on it, just because Margaritaville is estimating 3.5 to 5 million visitors a year just to them. So if you're looking at sites down near there, that makes a perfect location for you to come and put in and build something. The area past that, so Formosa Gardens Boulevard to Reedy Creek is Disney's gateway, because you can enter into Animal Kingdom from there. depending on the hotel you're staying at, if you're above like the 5th floor, you can see the Tree of Life. You can see Spaceship Earth from Epcot. Obviously fireworks every single night. Everybody in the celebration does that. But if you're in a hotel above the 5th floor over there, your view is unbelievable. Why they built the eye, where it's looking at the air conditioning units, when they could have built it here and had the Florida Everglades on one side and Walt Disney's property on the other. Anybody wants to build an eye, talk to me. Celebration is its own destination. If you look at the monument signs that have been installed in Celebration, you'll notice they're green and white, not purple. We've already tied it to the theming of the Celebration area. This is, like I said, our tourism district. So this district may actually be broken in half depending on how far futuristic Magic City actually builds. Because if they go super modern, with Old Town being sort of 1950s Americana, we may split the district and have two different themes. This is all themed around the water, Lake Cecile. If I had my druthers, I would buy it. I would buy it, I would clear it, and I would turn it into a park. Because the water is beautiful, it would elevate the property value of everything around there if we had that open. The area past that, this red district here, is really not a tourist district. If you go there, you start seeing like auto zones and things like that. Those aren't tourist destinations. So really what I want there is multifamily housing. My tourist district ends here. So it's basically between here and here. The rest of this is different uses. But in this particular area, we need more multifamily housing. Especially, I mean, we already have a housing problem. When you figure out how many people are going to be employed at Magic City, like that is a ton of employment. Margaritaville, same thing, tons of employment. And then this last district, like I said, is sort of themed around the woods, themed around nature because you have the boat launch. And the headwaters of the Everglades is right there. If you haven't gone down there, it's worth driving out there and renting a canoe. It's beautiful. But yeah, we've kind of themed all of them. And if we did art, we probably wouldn't do all 8, just based on the theming.
Yeah.
But the areas where it does make sense, we would want to tie it to whatever is in that particular district.
Where is Magic City currently?
So you know, if you pull out of here and you drive past Old Town, and then you start seeing woods on the right-hand side,
Yes.
from the moment they start all the way to Cracker Barrel.
So it's all on the right.
Yeah. 500 and something acres. Yes, sir.
We were working on a Saralago hotel for a while, and it came up that the intersection there, the red light, Magic City access would be going straight through the hotel and moving in a park. Has that been resolved? Or do you know? Is it a secret?
I don't know. I remember the conversations that you're talking about, and I remember the layout to figure out, okay, does Saralago need to be raised, basically? And there is a site that, there is a way that they were looking at doing it next to the extended stay that's across the street. I'm just not positive if they actually worked that out or not, if it was still just sort of, you know, in somebody's head, we could do it this way. Yes, sir.
The old Hyatt space there, it's about 50 acres. Is there, in your thought in terms of what may go in there, or is there plans for that, or is that moving along at all? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
You need to demo it.
I can't talk about that particular site. So I have a,
Is it good?
I have a non-disclosure agreement. I have a non-disclosure on that site. I will just say that I personally, being a resident of Celebration, am happy with what I've seen. Yes, sir.
My question pertains to this traffic. I mean, I know you have no control, that's a different division, but presently when anybody leaves Celebration going to the west, by the time you get to Old Lake Wilson Road, you can spend 15, 20 minutes just in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
It's every day. And now you're gonna have additional venues going further, which are gonna only make it worse.
Oh, yeah.
What is in somebody's plan, not yours?
So one of the challenges that we have, so In a past life, I was a transportation planner, so one of the reasons why I've been hired to do this type of job here is because very few people have sort of redevelopment background and transportation background for a 15-mile corridor, 6-lane divided highway. There's a lot of challenges associated with this area. Where they could do interconnectivity if they were to build an additional road to kind of bypass that, to let people get to Reunion, is through Celebration. And when I say through Celebration, I mean literally, not like build a road adjacent to Celebration and tie it in. I mean like pick these 20 houses and bulldoze them. That's never gonna happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know, it's all well and good to have, you know, I've been here 20 years,
Yep.
I know what you're talking about personally, but, you know, it causes me not to go in that area.
Oh, sure.
And then you put more tourists in there, and the one thing you didn't mention is, that's timeshare heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Everything, you know, you kind of gloss
Oh, yeah.
over that, like, you just take, what's it, Orange Lake. There's only 2 entrances, and both of them dump the traffic.
We have, just in case you didn't know this, in Osceola County, we have the highest percent of vacation home rentals in the world. Like we're the vacation home capital of the world. In fact, half of our tourist development tax, half, comes from vacation homes. In most places, you're talking maybe 5%, and then the other 95 comes from hotels. We're at 50-50. Yeah, there's a big challenge associated with that. We're looking at a number of things that could innovate our transportation network. The challenge that we have is there's not really room to widen 192, nor would I really want it to be widened, because if you've ever done any transportation studies, when you widen a road, it fixes it for about 3 to 5 years, and then it just worse. So if you have a bad pedestrian situation already where people are crossing massive distances, we went out and widened it. Yes, for a few years it would be like, wow, the traffic's better, and then it would be just as bad or worse. So we are looking at a number of ways that we can change things. One of the reasons why we're looking at pedestrian bridges is if we can start limiting the pedestrian crossings, and we're also looking at eliminating the frontage roads. There aren't frontage roads that connect hardly anywhere. There's maybe 25 to 30% of West 192 has frontage roads. So they were theorized as a good idea about 30 years ago and put in a code and said you had to do this, but only, like I said, only about 25-30% actually did it. And now what you really have is if you see a mom pushing a baby stroller walking into Old Town, you will see they hit the checkers and then have to walk in the street. In fact, the picture that I showed of Old Town, what it looked like before, there's a couple standing in the street there. I didn't plant them there. That was actually Google Earth, just driving by. It's just because there's no sidewalks that actually lead into the site. So when you have frontage roads, you've made the pedestrian situation bad. We're trying to look at ways that we can alleviate that. We've talked about doing something similar to iDrive and maybe in the future putting in some kind of shuttle service to get people out of their vehicles. The reason why we haven't done that yet is because we didn't really have the destinations. Now with Margaritaville opening and Magic opening, once they open, between that and Old Town and Medieval Times and the Historical Center, there are enough destination points to do something like that. It's just trying to get people out of the car.
What was I say, Margaritaville looks like it could have exits on many of the other,
It does.
but, you know, Magic City, that thing's going way back, but just hold people back.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, once that thing gets to where it's, how many stories is that?
They are doing 30 to 40 story towers.
Just thinking about.
No, transportation's a
I
rough.
mean, just the amount of flow coming just out of that.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
If we're the vacation rental capital of the world, why, I'm hearing that the impact fees for vacation homes may be reduced or eliminated. Why would we want to do that?
This is that part where the government guy says, not my department.
I figured you'd probably say that, okay.
I don't mean that to be facetious.
I
It's just,
understand.
so the reason for the ask, the reason why the developers are asking for that is they're saying, look, we're paying school impact fees on single family homes, and they're not single family homes, and nobody in here is ever going to go to school. There's a challenge associated with that. And that challenge is, that place may not always be vacation rental, and when it converts to all single-family homes, and it is filled with kids that go to school, and we don't have any schools for them to go to, that's a problem. So, I can't tell you whether I'm in favor or not, but I'll just say that I personally think there's some challenges associated with
Or
that.
as a retired person, I build a new home. I'm not going to put
Absolutely.
pressure, I'm not going to put pressure on the school system.
Absolutely. Even people who don't have kids, same thing.
Exactly.
They don't all get, well. We'll talk whenever I'm not in my,
There you go.
get up here, let you know.
You mentioned removing park benches. Are we looking at using environmental design to prevent crime in any
Yes.
other way?
Yes, we're looking at increased lighting, modification of landscaping. We have a lot of shrubs up that are like 6 feet tall. Again, they were put in whenever the idea for the design was to shield the area, basically hide what's behind the shrubs. But that's not good. It's not even good whenever you're walking, because again, subconsciously you may not notice that you're thinking that this isn't safe, but if there's shrub walls next to the sidewalk and there's a dark area behind it, you just kind of tense up because it doesn't feel safe. Our goal is to eliminate that. Whenever I started, one of the challenges that I got from board members was, well, if we put in this nice stuff, then people will just trample all over it. You can't do things to the lowest common denominator. If I put in nice landscaping and it gets trampled, I will put it in again, and again, and again, and again, and have the person arrested if it's the same person doing it. Because I'm not gonna dumb down what we're doing. And in some of the locations, really further to the west, down in this area, if you saw the stuff that we cleaned out of those shrubs on a daily basis, it would horrify you. Yes?
You said about Lake Cecil, the Star Motel, the Palm Pasta, whatever. Those are all filled with homeless families.
Yes.
If you're all eliminated, is there any kind of a plan for affordable housing?
Yeah, that's why we want this whole area to be multifamily housing. Is that whole sub-district past Lake Cecile, there's a demand there. So the idea of saying like, well, we'll just bulldoze all of those places and put in a giant resort and magically it'll make things better. Well, no, it won't, because those people who are living in there, some people classify it as homeless, but they're paying rent. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they're paying $300 a week.
Yeah, they're not, and that's the other thing, is a lot of people think like, oh, well, they're just staying there because it's $200 a month. Like, no, they're paying a lot more than what you think they're paying to live there. The fact that they're living there is not because they think, golly gee, wouldn't it be great to live in a really crappy 40-year-old motel?
With roaches.
With roaches and, yeah. I want to live somewhere with a high crime rate. It's just because they don't have, there's not really anything else for them to go to, and a lot of them actually do use the bus system. So those are the people you actually do see waiting for the bus, wearing the chef's coat, getting ready to go to work at one of the restaurants. So the goal is to eventually build multifamily housing that's adjacent to 192, so that they basically have a similar setup to what they have now, just living conditions are improved. And those motels aren't coming back. I know that there's some people who have a mindset like, oh, if you empty those out and just fix them up, like there's no fixing them up. They're not coming back. In fact, there is a very small percentage of people who will even stay in open corridor motels anymore when they're traveling. So and some of the people out there, some of the hoteliers out there who you can tell are not the best business people, throw a fit whenever their sign's gonna go down and get a monument sign that looks a million times better, and it's like, all of my business is drive-by. If you're in that business and all of your business is drive-by, you're done. Like the ship has sailed. You need to close the doors and turn the keys over to somebody because you've already lost. So, and with those properties, they're in such bad, that hostel has holes in the roof. I mean, I'm working through code enforcement on that. Osceola County's code enforcement can take a long time. It was difficult for me coming from Naples. Naples, our code enforcement was a little bit different. It was sort of like, you need to fix this, and if you don't fix it, we're gonna come bulldoze it, and we're gonna bill you for the bulldozer and the man hours. And if you don't pay that bill, we're gonna take your property and we'll put it up for sale and we're gonna keep all that. Here, it's like, you know, they're on their 9th renewal of the 6-month window. You're like, how many years are we gonna let somebody? Yeah, it's take advantage. Whoever said that, you're 100% right. Yes, sir.
I really appreciate this presentation. The biggest thing I've seen in terms of visioning of 192, which I've been so depressed about for the last 20 years.
You don't like purple?
Not quite cut it for me. Was, you know, I wanted to ask you, a lot of these issues that you're dealing with, I kind of see them not being solved. There's certainly economic growth because you're bringing in big new businesses.
Sure.
But physically, it seems like it's a grown-up version of the same thing.
Sure.
And I'm wondering, have you looked at some of the efforts that the new urbanism has produced, sprawl retrofit and multimodal transportation systems,
Oh, yeah.
interconnectivity,
Oh, yeah.
and all these elements that are fundamental in the CNU, the Congress of New Urbanism.
Yeah, I didn't touch on it during this presentation just because a lot of times people's eyes glaze over whenever I do. But yeah, we're looking at multimodal transit systems. We're looking at some of our big box sites. What could we do to retrofit them? We're looking at obviously mixed use in tons of locations, particularly in this area where we're talking about multifamily.
Right.
Really what we're talking about is building mixed use centers.
Vertical mixed use.
Yeah, vertical mixed use centers that are focused on mass transit.
Great.
So we're even looking at maybe doing locations where we've already, so again, this is code stuff that some people don't get excited by. We've already changed the parking code.
Right.
What used to be our minimum parking spaces allowed is now the maximum.
Wow.
Because if you go out on 192, I mean, you know, somebody's building a Walmart, they build the parking for Black Friday, and it's like, well, 99% of the year, there's just this giant sea of asphalt out there doing nothing.
There's this thing called shared parking.
Yep. Well, oh yeah. So those conversations are hilarious with businesses.
I'm really glad to see that you've isolated different sections of 192 because it's for so long it seems like it's been treated as the same thing.
When I started, there was immediate pushback whenever I had mentioned taking it and breaking it into smaller districts. We already have 3 zones, and they didn't even like the 3.
The engineers probably.
They wanted it to be 15 miles of the exact same thing. And I was like, you know, you might like chocolate chip cookies, but after the 300th one, you're like, can I please have something else?
You know, these areas where you say they're undeveloped, those are great opportunities to have multiple connected
without a doubt.
roads.
Yeah.
That you just require the land use change to have connectivity.
Yeah, we're looking at, we're looking at really everything with regard to that, because when you mentioned the traffic earlier, I mean, it's a problem. It already has really rough points now where things don't make sense. You get in your car, you go to Waze, you tell it you want to go to Chewy's, and it tells you that your expected arrival time is 45 minutes. And you're like, no, I'm not walking. Like, you get out on Griffin Road, and you get out on Griffin Road, and you think there must be a crash because I literally just turned off World
You
Drive.
shouldn't have to build a pedestrian bridge. You should solve it a different way, because that means the road is too dangerous for pedestrians to walk near.
Well, unfortunately, the 6-lane divided
Like, you
FDOT
put it on a
highway,
road diet, you know, and make it.
we can't. Engineers
Engineers won't let you.
Exactly. No, I'll be honest, it's FDOT's road.
I know.
So we can't put it on a road diet. One of the challenges, I was a bike ped guy for a long time, so I get on my soapbox. I used to start a presentation with, we're number 1, and everybody started cheering, and then the next slide was, we kill more people than any other state. Welcome to Florida. We will run your ass over if you're a pedestrian. With prejudice. And I always got told, like, well, no, it's not true. We don't really kill more people. It's just because we have nicer weather. Really? Because California is pretty nice, and so is Texas, and they're bigger, and we kill more people.
It's the truth.
But one of the challenges that you have, FDOT is getting a little bit better than they were 15 years ago. A little bit.
There are good solutions.
they're still not fully there. So whenever you look at like this 6-lane divided roadway, when I go have conversations with them, if I mention road diet, it's the exact
Well, it's
opposite.
like blaming the Russians.
Yep. They go in and say like, well, no, we don't need a road diet. What we need to do is add, we need to make it 8 lanes. And we need to take out the median, eliminate all your landscaping, and at a certain point, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we do that, like, this is,
Make it worse.
so yeah, well, that's
Good to hear.
that's the struggle, yes.
On the same subject, I mean, you're going to have all these single-family homes built and what have you, so again, you're going to have like 2 to 3 cars for each house. 535 is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Is there any plans there, like perhaps another road? I don't know, because like Poinciana Boulevard is ridiculous. They just expanded and that's
Yeah.
already worse than it used to be.
Yeah.
How about development, trading wetland for closer development or mixed use, higher density development?
Oh, no, we're looking.
Incentivize the higher density.
We're looking at that. I mean, one of the
Decentivize the sprawl.
One of the reasons why Magic is a pretty cool project is because of the verticality of it. Because you could have, yes, Magic could dump a whole lot of cars out, but there's also a pretty high likelihood that people are going to get off a plane, get picked up by a shuttle for Magic, taken there, and then they're going to go to Disney on a shuttle because they don't have a car, they didn't rent a car.
It's short-term rental though, right?
Yeah, it's vacation rental, so it's,
Vacation.
yeah, it's basically mostly Brazilian market. Magic has a couple of products already on the market now. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why we're excited about that was somebody actually going vertical with construction. A lot of places do the exact same thing, and we're gonna do single story, spread it out over 60 acres, and just put a giant parking lot up front. And I didn't even do it on here, but I got some super nerdy slides I could get into that show your value as a citizen when somebody builds something multi-story versus a Walmart. Because the site footprint is so much smaller and the taxable value is so much higher that Walmart is like worthless, yeah.
It's actually cost us money.
And
As
most,
a citizen.
in most cases, yeah, you end up footing the bill for Walmart, subsidizing it. And that's not even getting into them paying their employees.
Maybe the vertical will help pay for the multimodal transportation system.
So there's a number of options we're looking at for multimodal transportation systems. I know I showed the slide with the little pods,
Yeah.
but one of the things that we actually are looking at, they're launching in Boston, it is a pod system, but it almost looks more like a roller coaster track, like a steel tube roller coaster track. The footprint for it is extremely small. So it's a system that was talked about originally about 15 years ago. And it's a point-to-point system, meaning if you get into a pod, you put in your destination, it only stops at your destination. So your pod isn't stopping at every single stop. Because one of the challenges you have with getting people out of their cars is the idea of like, if you get on a bus and you know like, oh, I can get there in 20 minutes in my car or 3 hours on the bus and I have to change buses midway, nobody's wanting to do that. But if you make it to where you get into a pod, you hit a button and it takes you to your destination. Yes?
Don't they have those as solar pods also?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, like I said, they're rolling out in Boston. They had talked about doing a launch here. I'm just not comfortable with it. A lot of times they're above the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And we have too many people on the sidewalks. So too many tourists, it would be a PR nightmare if something happened for a tour. And besides that, most of our tourists have kids with them. Like, go test it out in Boston. Prove that it works. And if somebody mentioned DOT, you're right. You're right. If anybody has ever had a meeting where you want to just leave and go like, go have one with the, go have one with certain people at DOT. You'll leave going like, what?
We gotta get the right people.
Yeah, you get the right people, and it's so refreshing though that it feels odd. You feel like, wow, like you going, I'm ready for a fight. Listen, we need to build like this. And they're like, yes, we do. And you're like, really? Got to redo my whole presentation.
We're working with Rick Hall on retrofitting some of our streets here and in the new phase down in Islands Village. So Rick Hall's he won a gold medal through the CNU New Urbanism. So he's a fantastic. He's also working on the Florida Green Book, which is the engineering book for road systems that the engineers use. So I'm sure he'll cross his path.
Yeah, definitely.
And here, maybe, that's the group to talk to.
And I didn't even touch on it whenever we were talking about this, but one of the other reasons why we broke this into clusters is if you go to Las Vegas, you go to the hotel, park your car, and then you don't touch your car again until you get in and drive back to the airport.
It's pretty scary walking around Las Vegas.
Those are crazy people, yeah.
The roads are not like they are here.
Yeah. But the environment that they've set up there makes you want to walk. It feels like it would be a pain in the ass to get out and take your car to the next site. So it's so much easier to walk. I'm just going to walk. Whenever they were talking 15 miles, oh, we want you to walk from Margaritaville to Magic. Like, unless you're like getting a medal afterwards. But if I block off the area around Magic and Old Town and say, would you walk from Magic to Old Town? The answer is yes, if we do a good job with it. If we do a good enough job with it, we will make you want to park somewhere and then walk the entire district that you're in. I can't make you walk, you're not going to walk from Old Town to Cracker Barrel. But if you parked at Old Town and you walk around Old Town and it's nice out, it's not 1,000 degrees, I could get you to walk to Magic if it's close. If it's close enough, the walking environment looks friendly, it's engaging, feels like a place that you're supposed to be.
Actually, Cracker Barrel is not that far from Old Town.
Right now it's bad because it's just woods.
You have to take 192 to get there.
Yeah. Right now it's bad because there's just woods. Once those woods go down and Magic goes in and they do some water features and some cool building design, yeah, that walk is not going to feel like it's long at all because you're walking through a cool environment. And part of that is one of the reasons why we want to change some of our sidewalks and some of our structures out there is just make the environment friendlier. We're also looking at putting in maybe some blocks in the median to prevent people from crossing in certain locations. Median crossing in and of itself is not horrible. A median crossing across 6 lanes of divided highway in certain locations where the road turns is very bad, especially because we have kind citizens who decide to stop and let the person walk in front of them, not realizing that their car is now blocking the guy in the other lane from even seeing that there's a person in the crosswalk. So yeah, we're looking at all kinds of things that we can do to make the environment better. We've even looked at underground crosswalks. It's just that in Florida, sometimes the water table's too high, and then in other cases, if you can't get enough light down there.
Have you thought about developing between Osceola Parkway and 192 and having more connectivity between those two major road connections?
You mean roadway or pedestrian?
Both.
So there are, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes for both. There's already, if you go down International Drive, there looks like there's a sidewalk there. There's not. It's just a goat trail. So you already have a ton of people walking out of Gaylord and walking down 192 in a situation that's not comfortable for anybody. So we need to make that better. But again, one of the things that you'll have, and Las Vegas is a great example of this. If you take one of the side streets in Las Vegas, the second you hit vacant lots, you just don't feel safe. It's building, vacant lot. Ooh, I need to get out of here. Those areas that we have that are still vacant is problematic. But one of the things that's very positive is both my board and the county commission have sort of pivoted on the idea of sprawl. And it used to be, no, you want everything, build it, we're going to do transportation concurrency, checkbook style, and that road's failing, so you can't build anything else, build it way out there. And in reality, when you build it way out there, everybody still wants to come here, you just made the road worse.
Right.
So eliminating that and allowing verticality has really helped.
Good.
My hope is that we'll start seeing a lot more of those 2-story open corridors go down and larger facilities go in. As they go in, believe it or not, the transportation problem could go down because the more tower hotels you have, those tower hotels offer amenities that the 2-story open corridors don't, like a shuttle to Disney, a shuttle to the airport. So when you have more of that happening, you have less people taking individual cars. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.